question. Is Will Ortner poisoning everybody on this show to become a part of it?
Careful with that. I've already started talking with Jimmy Kimmel's lawyers, and Jason Sukanik can be expecting a lawsuit to be coming his way any moment.
Cease and desist, sir.
And if you want to keep up with that, that's fine. I have no issues suing my radio mentor.
Okay.
I know plenty of people who have done that.
Who sued me?
No, who have sued their boss.
Okay.
Their mentors.
Yeah, that happens from time to time.
Isn't that why Bo Schembechler hated Woody Hayes or whatever his name was?
Sure. I think it has a lot to do with a lot of different things. But we got Will Ortner, who is in, and we are going to party. I heard it on the radio yesterday that you're poisoning everybody on this show. So as long as I'm safe, hey, you do you, I guess.
You guys just keep up with this narrative.
Keep on keeping on.
I've reached out to Jimothy Kimmel, and he has given me the lawyers that he's talking to, and we are starting a class action lawsuit against Aaron Rodgers and Jason Sukanik. And if you want to join that, Dusty, you just keep running your mouth.
Perfect. We'll do it. Hey, we got a gift from the content gods right before this show started about 45 minutes ago. ESPN's Adam Schefter reported that Pete Carroll will no longer be the head coach of the Seattle Seahawks, out as head coach, but will stay on as an advisor to the franchise. Pete Carroll, goodness gracious. The dude is the second oldest coach in the NFL, 72 years old. Or is he the oldest coach? He's older than Bill Belichick, I think.
I thought Bill was older.
Okay. All right, we're gonna check the facts here. Nope. Pete Carroll, older than Bill Belichick.
Wow.
September 15th, 1951 for Pete Carroll. Bill Belichick, April 16th, 1952. We got 6 months on him. But the oldest head coach in the National Football League, hanging it up. And although he looks young, he does not look nearly as old as his age would tell you. Pete Carroll deciding to step away after 14 seasons at the helm of the 49ers. That's a big note and big news in the world of football. He is the fourth longest tenured head coach at any particular franchise, only behind Bill Belichick, Mike Tomlin, and John Harbaugh. His 14 seasons in Seattle saw 2 Super Bowl appearances and a Super Bowl win. We know how the other one went on the goal line. Give the ball to Marshawn Lynch, huh?
Well, to be fair, he was outnumbered.
Yep.
Outnumbered in the box.
Numbers told you to throw. But Pete goes down as longest tenured coach in Seahawks history, the winningest coach in Seahawks history, coach the only tie in Seahawks history. Isn't that weird? They've only had one tie in their franchise's history.
I'm shocked with how Mike Holmgren coached that team that there weren't 1,000 ties with him.
That's what I'm talking about. And that was 2016. Remember the 6-6 pillow fight in Arizona against the Cardinals? I believe that was a primetime game.
That's right. Is that the same game where both Cam Chancellor and Bobby Wagner jumped over the center to block field goals?
Oh, I think you might be right.
Because Cam Chancellor and Bobby are the originators of that move.
No, they're not.
Yes, they are.
No, they're not.
Yes, they are.
No.
What are you going to say? Kevin Bacon did it?
Yes, but I will also say Troy Polamalu originated that. Okay,
he did it over the quarterback.
Troy Polamalu did it over everybody. He did it on special teams. He did it on the goal line. Troy Polamalu, the pride of Douglas High School, he is the one that did that. That game, it had 4 field goals in it. 2 of them were in overtime. That game sucked. That game was terrible.
That has reminiscence of a Pittsburgh, Oregon State Sun Bowl game that I remember as well.
Yeah, and howling wind, except for that this one was in a dome, so you can't blame the wind. You can just blame football for that one. But Pete Carroll goes down as the greatest coach in Seahawks history. I don't think that is it is undeniable, which means it cannot be denied, baby Billy. And he took the franchise from a place where Mike Holmgren got him to the Super Bowl and elevated that franchise to continually being relevant, right? Holmgren got them there. Then you had that 1 year of Jim Mora. Then it enters Pete Carroll and really solidified the best era of Seahawks football. And now he is going to move on, and all the questions moving forward look at Seattle and they say, where do you go from here? Because what a year to make this transition, because if you are a head coach that you look at the stability of this franchise over the 14-year run that Pete Carroll had, it's pretty damn stable, right? You've got a good core, but you also have a ton of holes moving forward in this roster that you have got to figure out.
Right.
Mainly entering this season, and we'll dive into where the Seahawks go and what this means for not just Seahawks, but the NFC West as a whole, kind of the hierarchy of the NFC West now that, one of the long-standing figures of that division is out, and what that means for the 49ers, Rams, and Cardinals as well. But the Seahawks organization as a whole, this is a transitionary period, and when you have a 71-year-old coach, it is a smart move to kind of move on at this point. It did come as a surprise, right? It didn't blindside anybody, because there were these rumblings that, hey, keep an eye on Seattle, keep an eye on Pete Carroll as one of those surprise moves. But here we are, just, I think that was about 2 weeks ago was kind of the first real rumblings that we really heard of. Keep an eye on what happens up in the Northwest. People thought Pete would just kind of run it back and keep stewardship of the Seahawks, but he moves on in a time where you need a new quarterback. You're looking at rebuilding your defense, because the prevailing thought is you will move on from Jamal Adams at the safety position.
Yep.
Because, boy, he hadn't been happy. Healthy scratches, never good. Never good to have.
Never good, especially when you're paid a lot of money.
That in the back end. In the middle, Bobby Wagner comes back. He leads the team in tackles this year, but you have an aging middle linebacker. Then Leonard Williams. Are you going to re-sign Leonard Williams in the middle of your defensive line? And now you look at offensively. Let's flip over to the other side of the ball. You're still uncertain at what you're going to do at the quarterback position. Your interior of your offensive line was an absolute mess over the course of this season. You have a ton of holes. Look, think about that. Receiver, you don't have to worry about, but your interior offensive line, your tight ends, you feel comfortable with your running back room if they can stay healthy. But that's every NFL team, if we're being quite frank. And you have all at every single level of your team, defensively and offensively. You've got question marks moving forward. It is time to bring in a new head coach and kind of right this ship with new eyes and a new culture set. But make no mistake, they're going to try to stay in-house. The immediate name that has popped up has been Dan Quinn to replace him, former defensive coordinator.
Right. And as a Seattle fan, I don't want Dan Quinn, because I think if you're going to make this move, to me, it is, let's move the franchise in a new direction. And in a new direction, go get a young quarterback. This is the draft class to do it. There are 4 to 5 guys that people are talking about with legitimate first-round grades. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to go do that, go get an offensive-minded offensive coordinator or a head coach and put them into that position. Go out and make a big splash, because as difficult as your division is, you have shown in Seattle that you can build a consistent winner. I mean, even when you look back at the Holmgren years, they were very, very successful until the very, very end, right?
Yeah.
So as a Seahawks fan, go after Ben Johnson. Go after another hotshot offensive coordinator. Go after Jim Harbaugh. Go after one of these guys. Don't just run it back, because if you're going to run it back, don't run it back with Dan Quinn. Run it back with the guy who created the system, and that's Pete Carroll.
Yeah.
So if you're going to make that change, go draft a quarterback and be okay with sucking for a year or two. Trade away the old guys or cut bait and move on. Stop being stuck in this. You're going to win 53% of your games. You might make the playoffs. Some years you might miss. It's okay to blow it up and have a year or two where it's bad, where it's rough, because that's what Pete did when he first got there.
Well, if you are a fan of the Portland Trailblazers and the fan of the Seahawks, Jody Allen, Vulcan, Burt Cold, another reset happening with the franchise owned by Jody Allen and the Vulcan Group. The Seahawks will be undertaking a massive overhaul. I believe that Pete Carroll is just the beginning of what this overhaul will look like, and we've got a ton that we've got to get to on that front, because, look, we mentioned it. Where did the Seahawks go organizationally from here? The offshoots of that are the NFL draft that is coming up. They got the 16th overall pick this year. They have 7 picks in the draft. They do not have a second-round pick, but they do have 2 third-round picks that are relatively high in the third round. So you have that you will be looking forward to. 7 draft picks, a new head coach, and what is signaling to be an offseason of full sail changes for the Seahawks. We got a ton that we can bite off on this one. And then also, Pete Carroll and his status as a coach, because we just saw Jim Harbaugh win a college football playoff championship. Mm-hmm. Pete Carroll won a national championship at USC, 2 national championships at USC, won a Super Bowl with the Seahawks. Very short list of people who have been able to accomplish that, and Jim Harbaugh will, by most accounts, try to do the same thing, jump back to the NFL and go after a Super Bowl trophy. But where is Pete Carroll in the hierarchy of the football world? Because, my God, you go down the list and you look at some of the winningest coaches in NFL history, and even though Pete Carroll was in the college ranks for a big chunk, Pete Carroll leaves with what are we at here? If you go by win percentage here,
it's like 66%, right?
66%. He goes down as one of the winningest coaches. If you look at guys that have coached, 10 years or more in the NFL, he is near tops on that list. 18 years as an NFL coach, and it wasn't all terrible in New England either. But the 14 in Seattle are the ones that Pete Carroll is going to be remembered by. 586 was his win percentage overall. 170 wins as an NFL head coach. Think of that, 170 wins. That puts him, I think, in the top 15 all time in wins, NFL history.
Well, and then he, you could make the argument he created probably the best
13th
dynasty of the early 2000s in college football until Nick Saban and Alabama topped that, and Clemson and Dabo Swinney topped it, right? Mm-hmm. He also, in a time where football has gone, especially in the NFL, has gone offensive, he probably created the best defensive group in the last century. If you talk, I guess the 21st century, because I don't know if it compares, because the longevity of the Steel Curtain, the longevity of the Purple People Eaters, right? Those are some great all-time defenses. I mean, the 85 Bears, it was really only 1 year, but that 1 year was so dominant.
I think what we have to do is you have to parse out the world of free agency and the salary cap era of the NFL into two different categories here, because the Purple People Eaters, the Steel Curtain, those days it was a controlled league, right? You didn't leave. You had uncapped NFL, and then all of a sudden, the NFL made a model that promoted 500 as being good, right? They wanted the whole league to be 500. They tried to eliminate dynasties. Well,
they wanted parity, yeah.
One thing that they failed to do was eliminate one of the greatest dynasties in the NFL, one that lasted 20 years in the New England Patriots, because Tom Brady kept kicking the can down the road and restructuring his contract. They found a shortcut behind that, and that's what the Chiefs are doing now with Patrick Mahomes, too.
Yeah, just marry a Brazilian supermodel.
That's what I'm talking about. You find that sugar mama.
It's simple.
Yeah, you have to find a smoking hot quarterback to find smoking hot wife who's richer than him, and you're going to be fine.
Yeah, and then just wait, and she'll divorce him after he already leaves your franchise.
That's right.
Perfect.
That's right. Find that sugar mama.
Foolproof plan.
All right. Pete Carroll out as Seahawks head coach. We didn't get to any shenanigans there.
We didn't. Well, we kind of shenanigan when you threatened libel. I threatened libel action against you.
That's no. You
said
legal
libel.
Action. Yes.
I threatened legal action against your libel.
There we go. And now, there we go. Yeah, you took classes somewhere.
I took a sports law class.
That's right. That's right.
I cheated through it.
All right. No way. You never
got an A.
All right. Where did the Seahawks go from here? You mentioned a name that we can already rule out next on The Fan.
Hello, sports fans, and welcome.
He went 137, 89, and 1 as the Seahawks head coach. That is a 60% win percentage. In total, 18 years as a head coach, 170, 120, and 1, 586 all-time win percentage. Super Bowl victory, another Super Bowl appearance, and a host of playoff appearances for Pete Carroll. People forget, in New England, he went to the playoffs twice.
He basically built the first championship team, correct?
No, that was still kind of Parcells.
Oh, it was more Parcells?
Yeah. But, he laid a foundation, and then they came in and kind of overhauled some things. But, yes, Pete Carroll did a really good job, and the base was there for him to succeed. But you look at Pete Carroll and what he was able to do in Seattle, not just win, but sustained winning. And look, the one thing that I can't get over with Pete Carroll is how long and how well he held it together with Russell Wilson as the quarterback there.
Oh, yeah. With everything coming out about all the players hating him, and it actually has some basis in fact. Like when
there's a lot of fact in there.
And when most of the news first came out, it was just like, it seems like you're jealous, you're this, you're that. The more that news trickles out, whoa, he was a horrible teammate.
Yeah. Well, just not the best teammate in the world, and not a guy who is easy to like. And to have your team be as successful as long as they were with him as the quarterback, that says a lot about Pete Carroll and a lot about how they kind of closed the walls and made sure that it was an insulated locker room. And there was definitely that divide of offense versus defense there, and who the credit went to. But Pete Carroll was masterful at stroking egos and making sure that guys stayed motivated and ready to play. You mentioned Jim Harbaugh. Go after Jim Harbaugh on this. And with Pete Carroll staying on as an advisor to this team,
they won't.
There is absolutely no way Jim Harbaugh is a candidate for the head coaching vacancy in Seattle. Those two guys hate each other.
Maybe they'll be friends. Dusty, why can't I hope?
That's like saying, maybe they bring in Mike Bellotti. Remember after when Pete Carroll flipped Mike Bellotti off during a game after they reviewed, they called a timeout to get a review. And then Bellotti called the timeout to get a review of the review, and then a call's overturned, and he gave you the FU. And then you have with Harbaugh, it was like what's your problem, bro?
That's right. And they chased each other into the tunnels.
Yeah. I mean, that ain't happening. Yeah, you're not. I don't think you're going to get Jim Harbaugh there, but you do look at, all right, what does make sense? Where do you go if you're Seattle? Dan Quinn is a guy who would be seen as a fit. He liked his time there, was the defensive coordinator there, works well with Pete Carroll and John Schneider. He had a head coaching opportunity, and then he went on. He is going to be a big candidate for head coaching vacancies, but we also have to remember that the new rule in the NFL, they can't interview Dan Quinn as long as he's in the playoffs. Okay. So you're going to have to wait a while for this one to happen. So that's something to keep on the back burner. Ben Johnson, the Detroit Lions offensive coordinator. He's the hot name, the hot offensive name in the NFL hiring cycle. This is also something that people need to be aware of. Okay. Where is Seattle? We just mentioned all of the holes that Seattle has moving forward, right?
Right.
You've got at every level of your defense, you are projected to have a big hole this year and find a replacement. Whether it is, they could still re-sign Leonard Williams, and that is something that you need to keep in the front of your mind. But you do need to bolster the interior of your defensive line. You do need to find a replacement for Bobby Wagner, long in the tooth, still very productive. It appears
led the league in tackles.
It appears they're going to move on from Jamal Adams, and rightfully so. That blew up in their face. Okay. But then you need offensively, you have DK Metcalf, you have Tyler Lockett, you have I don't know, the Bobo Power, JSN.
JSN was nasty at the end.
He is twitchy. You have Kenneth Walker in your backfield, but you have a hole at quarterback. You have big holes on the interior of your offensive line. Your tackles had a regression this year after great rookie campaigns. They did take a step back. Injuries had a big part, played a big part in that. But if you are getting an offensive coach, are there more attractive offensive rosters that have vacancies? Look no further than the LA Chargers or the Atlanta Falcons when you're thinking about teams like that. But John Schneider he does carry a big stick, and he has drafted very well. He's a general manager that has a lot of credibility and has worked well with his head coach and worked in tandem with him almost better than anybody else over the last 14 years, right? Pete Carroll's been the head coach for the Seahawks. You do have Pete Carroll who will be there to help steward you, and that may actually be something that is a detraction from some coaches. When the legendary coach is still hanging around as an advisor to the franchise, does that maybe turn some people away? There's a lot of guys that want head coaching jobs in the NFL. That is 100% true. We know that, right? But if you are a Ben Johnson, do you want to have your autonomy? It will, and also it may be a detraction for some. It may be an attraction to others to have Pete Carroll to lean on in those times, because if I'm thinking of a guy who will stand back and let you do your thing, it's Pete Carroll, and a guy who's going to defend you to the public and forward facing, especially if he's still employed by the team. He's going to defend you.
Yeah.
Right?
And Pete's always done a great job too. Like, let's make no bones about it. He's coached some very interesting individuals and been able to keep them all together. The one that sticks out in my head is Marshawn Lynch and Michael Bennett. Those are two dudes that at times can be way off the reservation. Yet you never heard about anything coming out bad about them or anything like that. And he kept those guys together in Seattle the way that he handled that locker room. Yeah. So why couldn't he do that in that advisor role? So maybe you do go get one of the young hot shot coordinators that you can go and grab and say, well, let's let Pete teach them how to navigate some of these difficult waters, teach them how to navigate some of these different players and those player relationships that they're going to have to build as a head coach. What I think was interesting, and you heard Mark Sanchez talking about this earlier today, is how involved Pete Carroll was. Because usually when you have a head coach, they are involved with their side of the ball, or in some cases, it's really just a vast overseeing, and they want to let their position coaches coach. Pete Carroll, it sounds like, has an ability not to micromanage, but he knows everything that's going on in every position room. Yeah. And he's talking to all of his players. Can you go and find a new head coach that can do that just as well as Pete? Can you go and find another coach who can have his hands in everything, but do it in a way that isn't micromanaging? Yeah,
but you don't want to find the next Pete Carroll, right? You want to find the guy who's going to kind of carve his own path out.
I don't know. Pete Carroll's path's pretty good.
It is pretty good.
But
it's pretty good.
Right. And that is why, to me, I would want an OC. And I get it, there are better jobs out there for Ben Johnson. There are other opportunities that might be more attractive.
Yeah.
Right. But if I'm Seattle, I feel like this is a clear decision that you are hitting reset. Because if you are not hitting reset, you might as well keep Pete. He's well liked in that locker room. The players trust him. He's able to bring back guys from the Legion of Boom time. He's able to bring back some of his USC guys where they can relate to the players. And it's very clear that they go and fight for him. Look at the very last game that he just coached. You were out of the playoffs. There was no reason to compete in that game in the fourth quarter. Your season was done. It didn't matter if you won or you lost. Yet he kept that group together long enough for them to have a game-winning drive and then a game-winning stop on both sides of the ball. So offensively and defensively, they succeeded. If you can go and find a guy that can have that same kind of trust or that same kind of support, or have Pete back a guy so they at least get the benefit of the doubt at the start, that can be huge for the build. And why I would go with an OC, you need a quarterback. I understand that a lot of people like Geno, and I guess by the advanced metrics, he does well. Here's another advanced metric for you. He's old. It's time to move forward. Go get a young guy and reset this team. You're not winning a title with him. So go get one of the young quarterbacks in this draft class. Or if you want to take a risk on a quarterback that's already been drafted in, he's going to enter free agency, or you're willing to try and make a trade, go and do that, but reset the whole thing.
Yeah. And this is kind of I understand the Geno Smith is good enough, right? But Geno Smith is a guy that you need to have a complete roster around him if you are going to achieve what every fan base wants to, right? And that's just not winning a Super Bowl, but being a competitive playoff team. And there are the limits that Geno Smith does have. Having the weapons around him that they have surrounded him with DK, with JSN, having Kenneth Walker in the backfield when healthy, Tyler Lockett, like they have surrounded him with the pieces offensively. But you need a complete team. You need a team that can protect him defensively, because there are the limitations, and we do know that. And you say the age factor there. I feel like with Pete Carroll in this shift in the reset, it is going to be a more seismic shift that they are going to make organizationally.
That's what it feels like.
And that is what it feels like. We got some names popping up on the Vancouver Ford text line, 503-864-6326, where the Seahawks should go. We'll get some of your feedback there on the Vancouver Ford text line or in the YouTube chat. YouTube.com/1080am The Fan. We're also streaming on Twitch now too.
That's what I'm looking.
1080am The Fan on Twitch.
When I click the button,
yeah,
the little slider.
Yeah.
Normally it's just slid over to YouTube. The Twitch one slid this way.
Yeah.
The other way.
Yeah.
They're both slid the same way.
We're twitching now.
We are twitching.
Were they twitchers or tweakers?
Tweeters?
We're twitching. So make sure you get in on the comments on both of those. Will be the moderator of the Twitch stream. I don't even know how to get into Twitch. So that's on you.
Well, you just gotta you Twitch. I got the multi-stream up right now. I'm looking at all the people. I'm getting called an idiot.
All right.
Typical.
503-864-6326, Vancouver Ford text line. Hey, why don't we just keep it traditional then, huh? Right now is Big Will with Sports Center.
This is a Wild Card Week edition of Danny and Dusty.
Brought to you by George McCoy at WarrenAllen.com.
Now, from the Spirit Mountain Casino Sports Desk, a Sports Center update on 1080 The Fan.
Sports Center is brought to you by Toro Mexican Kitchen. Transport yourself to Baja, Mexico with delicious regional dishes and cocktails. Book your table today at ToroPDS.com. First on the Fan, a shocker in Seattle. This is according to ESPN's Adam Schefter, and the Seahawks have released a statement. Pete Carroll, he will no longer be the head coach of the Seattle Seahawks. He is going to remain with the franchise. He's going to be in an advisorship role. You're going to want to listen to 1080 The Fan all day and all offseason long to get the latest news on Seattle's next head coaching search. Some other news in the NFL, the Cleveland Browns, they're getting their star wide receiver, Amari Cooper. He's coming back this week. He's missed the last 2 games with a heel injury, so that's a big get for them. Over to the NBA, Adrian Wojnarowski reported today that the Clippers, they just signed a contract extension with Kawhi Leonard. That's a 3-year deal worth $153 million to stay with the team. Jumping over to the Oregon Ducks, their football team, they've reached an agreement with Hawaii. They're going to postpone their scheduled season opening game in 2024. That's going to move to a future season. The addition of Oregon State and that game helped make this move a necessity. Some other big news for a former Oregon Duck player, Jackson Powers Johnson. He's going to be one of 15 underclassmen to attend the Senior Bowl on February 3rd in Alabama. This is the first year that underclassmen have been able to compete in that bowl game. Good news for the Ducks basketball team as well. Center N'Faly Dante, he's back to practice after having knee surgery last month. There's hope that he might be able to play this Saturday against Cal. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. I'm Will Ortner from the Spirit Mountain Casino Sports Desk. The playoffs, the big game. Watch and wager on all the action at Spirit Mountain Casino. Learn more at spiritmountain.com.
Go deeper on the Trailblazers. The Rose Garden Report with host Sean Highkin. Download the Rose Garden Report on the free Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Made to Shine. Real stories from Shane Company customers.
I grew up in a small
Vancouver Ford text line 503-864-6326. We got some names that are flowing out there. Dan Quinn does appear to be the name that is attached to Seattle because he was a former defensive coordinator there. That does make sense, but we got a lot of different names that are coming in to the Vancouver Ford text line. And look, Ben Johnson would be great. I don't think that Seattle is anywhere near the top of the most attractive jobs at Ben Johnson. If you do have the pick of the litter, it is going to be probably Chargers, where Harbaugh is rumored to go to. And if it's not Harbaugh, then do they go after a Ben Johnson and get an offensive mind in there? Atlanta is also offensively more set and ready to win in a division that is more ready to win, because you also have to look in the division that you're playing in too. But Seattle does come into this, and when you look at the hierarchy of jobs, right? I don't know if anybody heard the Amy Adams Strunk, the owner of the Titans interview. Boy, that was brutal. We'll play some audio bits from that later. That's not an ownership group you want to play or coach for. I don't know if Jody Allen in Vulcan is one, though. I mean, think about it. Like, Paul Allen just said, I'm going to let football people make football decisions, let them go and just do their thing. I think that John Schneider does have a lot of sway, and his standing in the NFL, I think, does maybe trump that. And look, we're gonna air the press conference at 1:00 at the top of the hour. Pete Carroll will address the assembled media on this, but it's not like he was forced out either. Okay, we don't know if he was forced out. He's gonna stay on in an advisory role. He's 71 years old.
They're doing it's the Mike Holmgren method. Much how, like, the Packers, they went and got Aaron Rodgers and let him sit under Favre, and then Love sit under Mike Holmgren. Hey, buddy, we're thinking about going in a different direction.
Yeah.
What about you come in as an advisor?
Yeah. Yeah. So I just think we can kind of maybe pull back the ownership a little bit. They are committed to spending money. We do know that. It was a calculated rebuild in Portland. And, this one may be totally by Pete Carroll's own volition on this one.
Jody's also been very upfront about wanting to find a way to keep some kind of ownership stake in Seattle.
Right.
She's a big fan of the Seahawks. It's a little different trying to compare her ownership and running the Blazers, a team that she doesn't seem as interested in, and the Seahawks, where she seems to be more of I don't want to say a stable owner, but there's more of a want to succeed, I guess.
All right, some of the texts that are coming in. This one says, if John Schneider's leading the search, I feel good. There is trust and continuity there. If Vulcan is involved, I'm scared essless. Well, I can see why you would feel that way, but it's neither here nor there. A lot of defensive-minded coaches are getting fired. Seahawks should go hard after Eric Bieniemy. That from P1B Rod. Eric Bieniemy's name popping up here.
That's an interesting one because a lot of what you hear about Bieniemy, as good of a coach as he is, he does have the ability to rub players the wrong way.
He's the anti-Pete Carroll in that regard. And maybe if Pete Carroll is on it an advisor, that is where he kind of smooths things over, and that mentorship may help.
Right. Yeah, that's an opportunity there as well. And if you want to go down that offensive path, I know a lot of people on the Vancouver Ford text line are saying go after Vrabel.
Yeah, Mike Vrabel.
I'd love to have him. I think kind of I threw out Jim Harbaugh and I threw out Ben Johnson, and initial knee-jerk reaction, yes, of course I'd love Vrabel. I don't know that we would be on the top of his list, just like Seattle wouldn't necessarily be on the top of Ben Johnson or on the top of Jim Harbaugh's list.
Go get Bill Belichick. No, Vrabel would be a good one. I feel like Vrabel would be an easier transition, a guy who players relate to very well, players love, defensive minded, and one of the most brilliant defensive minds in football. Mm-hmm. But then you also go down the road of, like, P1B Rod said, a lot of defensive coaches are getting fired right now. Of the 6 vacancies heading into today, 3 of the firings were defensive guys, right? Yeah, when you look at Brandon Staley, Mike Vrabel, Ron Rivera.
Yeah.
Okay. But there still are 9 defensive-minded head coaches in the NFL, because Bill Belichick still is employed in New England For how long, we don't know. But there are 9 when you look at Bill Belichick, Mike Tomlin, Sean McDermott in Buffalo. You have Robert Saleh in New York, Matt Eberflus, or Dweeberflus, as Will Ortner likes to call him, in Chicago, who we found out is keeping his job today.
Of all the people to keep their job, that's probably the most shocking.
Dennis Allen, Todd Bowles, Jonathan Gannon, D'Amico Ryans, all defensive coaches. Those are also coaches that aren't really blowing your hair back. D'Amico Ryans is, Robert Saleh is a very good coach. Results have not been there. That's more because of quarterback play, and I don't know, one of the best quarterbacks getting hurt. But Mike Tomlin, obviously his pedigree and his track record speak for themselves, but we almost damn near had a mutiny in Buffalo with Sean McDermott, right?
Right.
They seem to be rallying around him now, but everybody wants the hot offensive mind because offense runs the NFL, and if you have a good coordinator, he will go somewhere else.
Well,
them's the rules.
In the success of Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, LaFleur, and McDaniels, it's almost right away they turned around the franchises that they went to. Year one. Right. And so I think that's another big reason where you see these offenses that flourish throughout at minimum half of the season for guys like McDaniels or LaFleur in the back half of the season. But the immediate turnaround that McVay was able to have in LA, Shanahan and what he's been able to do in San Francisco and basically be successful everywhere he's gone. McDaniels, he turned around Miami. That Miami team was one of those teams where they have all the talent in the world, but they're not able to reach their true potential, and they seem to have done that. I think that also is why a lot of franchises are like, we can be successful tomorrow if we get the right OC in and the right young QB.
Big Jeff in, he says, how about Lincoln Riley for Seattle's head coach? He has the USC connection. Lincoln Riley coming in a few times.
No.
Something's not right in LA, though. Something's not right with USC. I know that they just got the UNLV transfer quarterback, Maave, who committed to Georgia yesterday to commit to USC today and flip that. Things aren't right down in LA, but I'm not sure that's the route you want to go.
Right. That's
like hey, USC head coach worked once. Let's go do it again.
Who has had a lot less success than the other USC head coach. Oh, and by the way, that other USC head coach started in the NFL, so he understands that game. Other than Harbaugh, I don't think that there's anyone in college that Seattle should target.
Go get Matt Rule.
Should want to. You don't want Matt Rule. A lot of the youngest.
That was a joke.
Right, but a lot of the young coaches, they seem to be well entrenched with where they want to be. And a lot of the old coaches, you don't want a Kirby Smart in Seattle because his style wouldn't work in the NFL game.
I don't think Lincoln Riley translates to the NFL as well as a lot of other people do. I've
never understood it.
I don't think it does. So I'm not. Lincoln Riley's going to name that may pop up a few more times, though. I think when it's all said and done, we're going to look at this, and usually the names that come out first are the ones that boomerang back around, and Dan Quinn seems to be that name that popped out right at the beginning of this. 503-864-6326. That is the Vancouver Ford text line. We will air Pete Carroll's press conference from Seattle at the top of the hour, as Pete Carroll, after 14 seasons, is no longer the head coach of the Seattle Seahawks. 2 Super Bowl appearances, 1 Super Bowl win, the longest tenured coach in Seahawks history, the 4th longest tenured coach in NFL this year, behind only Bill Belichick, Mike Tomlin, and John Harbaugh. Pete Carroll, stepping aside as the head coach, will remain as an advisor to the Seahawks. 13th all-time in wins in NFL history. Coming up next, though, it's not a Black Wednesday for one coach in the NFL. Danny and Dusty on The Fan.
The Fan is on in your home and where you work.
It's just
head coach. Oh, man. Seahawks got a lot of holes that they need to fill. Will they be looking with the 16th overall pick and 7 total draft picks this season at quarterback, interior defensive line, linebacker, interior offensive line, safety? There's holes to be filled in Seattle, and it'll be turning the page of a new era. And look, this is so much change with both of the Vulcan-led franchises, right? Seahawks and Blazers, led by Jody Allen and Burt Kold now. I don't, and we'll find out what led to Pete Carroll stepping aside. I don't think it was ownership forcing it.
There are points where the Twitter
you would fire him,
right? Well, and there are also points where the Twitter sleuths, they're going back. Remember when Seattle on Monday night they beat the Eagles, and after the game, Pete Carroll talked about how awesome it was to be a part of a game like this, and then they had pictures of him just sitting out there staring at the field afterwards. Yeah. It does feel a little bit like he might have been planning for this move, this decision.
Yeah. And so, 71 years old, do you blame him? He got nothing left to prove. And this could be the more of a seismic shift in what happens with the organization moving forward at the quarterback position and several positions of note. One guy who did save his job is Matt Eberflus.
The dweeb.
He will be retained as Chicago Bears head coach. Still want to see more out of him, I guess. They have fired offensive coordinator Luke Getsy, though.
The entire offensive staff. Everybody's fired.
Everybody on the offensive staff. Yeah, that's the problem. Their offensive line was not good. They have one receiver in DJ Moore. Justin Fields is, I believe Justin Fields is a competent, but not a get you over the top quarterback in the NFL. And what are you going to do? If you're not going to hire the head coach who is the play caller, all you're doing is going to hire an offensive coordinator that fixes Justin Fields and then is the head coach somewhere else the next year. That's what you're doing, Chicago. If you're going to run it back with Justin Fields again, that's what you're doing. And if you're going to draft Caleb Williams, that's going to be fantastic. Yeah. Hey, come on in with Matt Eberflus and his sterling resume that he is bringing to the table. Chicago just fails again. Chicago fails again.
They're really good at finding a way to bite themselves every single time.
They sure are.
And it's the same thing. Like I was just talking about it with Seattle. Like, I want Seattle to get an offensive-minded coach because I want them to go and draft the QB of the future and let him pick what quarterback he's going to go with. You have the number 1 pick. I would take Caleb Williams with that number 1 pick. But you might bring in an NFL head coach that is offensive-minded that looks at Justin Fields and goes, no, I can fix this guy. I can correct his mistakes. This is the guy that I want. I would disagree with that person, but at least they are making the decision on who their quarterback is. Next year, whoever you hire, because you're probably going to have to fire Eberflus. I could be wrong, but you might have to fire him if you have another losing season. And then you're going to hire an offensive-minded head coach or a new head coach that didn't draft the quarterback that he is stuck with.
Look, I am not big on fire a guy. I do believe, just as like the quarterback position, I think you need to get a large enough sample to make a determination on a quarterback. Sure, there are throws, there are things and tools that a guy will have that you can know immediately yes or no. We know what Eberflus has been able to do or been unable to do with Justin Fields at this time in Chicago. All you're doing is delaying the inevitable there. That's all it feels like. And I guess maybe you don't want to be an organization in a flooded market of coaching vacancies because now you have 7 open, and also, it could be we could see up to 9 coaching vacancies.
It's also the best free agent coaching class there's ever been.
But
I feel like
you also have the number 1 overall pick. And that is attractive to an offensive mind, especially when you have a generational talent at quarterback in the draft and you have 2 first-rounders this year. That's attractive. That's attractive. And if you are going to reset, this would be the perfect time to do it if you're Chicago, because you could get your quarterback and then you could get either a wide receiver, or you can go and you can bolster your offensive line with that second pick that you have in the first round. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why you should reset at the coaching position if you're the Chicago Bears, and they opted not to do it today.
And if you really wanted to, you could trade back down. If Caleb Williams isn't your guy, you could trade that first round pick again and get even more picks if that's what that head coach wanted to do.
So we are going to go live to Seattle. Pete Carroll going to be addressing the assembled media at the top of the hour, and we will carry it live next. Danny Dusty on The Fan.
Hey, it's Rob.
In Seahawks history, the fourth longest tenured coach in the NFL entering this season, Pete Carroll, has decided to step away as head coach from the Seahawks and join the team as an advisory role moving forward. We now head to the podium where Pete Carroll is live in Seattle.
Appreciate everybody showing up. Since our last game, I had a couple chances to talk, and first I shared my feelings about our team and about the organization and representing the 12s and my intentions of staying with the Hawks, man. And that was true to the bone. And I want to make sure that that's clear as things have shifted so quickly in most people's perspective. It's been an honor and a thrill to be part of this program, and I've loved every minute of it, and you've watched me love it in particular, and it's exciting that there's such a future here, and you can see it, and we know what's happening, and it's bright, and the club's got great places to go, and there's great chances. It don't ever happen automatically. There's a lot of work to be done and all of that, but the future is bright. And following our season-ending meetings with ownership, in the planning sessions, it's clear that, and for a variety of reasons, we have mutually agreed to set a new course and for the club to take on new leadership. And that's just a decision that's been made, and there's a lot that went into that and a lot that went behind that. And for all my guys, I think you know how much I probably competed for our perspective and our standpoint and all of that. I freaking didn't back off for an instant. And what's going to happen now is the process will start to get new leadership here, and then that'll be on Johnny's docket. He's going to get after that and make that happen with help of ownership and all that, and we'll be supporting them as much as possibly can happen so that they can do a great job with it. I'm so grateful to the coaches that have been with us for so many years. Also, all of the coaches that have been here for the years before that put up with my stuff and found way, to bring it to life daily. And I have great gratitude for that. Really, it was really, and I go to it's not just the dedication and the loyalty, it's the freaking juice. It's bringing it. And I asked a lot of them, and they were good at it, and I appreciate that a lot. I'm so sorry. I'm so heartfully sorry for the families. Y'all don't realize how deep this runs. It's just going next coach, next staff, what's going to happen, what's the future and all that. There's people in this thing. And it breaks my heart that so many people get shocked and adjusted and surprised and all of that, and the children. And we have so many kids in this organization that we love so much and we celebrate whenever we get our chance. It breaks my heart that we're dealing with that. But that is what happens, and that's part of this business and part of a lot of businesses. It's not unique just to us. To the players that have been part of this thing, you don't probably know this, how deeply I feel about the NFL is about the players. And we've not recognized that to my satisfaction. I brought it up at the league meetings a few years ago and probably surprised some people about it. But this league is about the players. And without those guys doing what they do, there's nothing. It isn't about the ownership. It's not about the coaching. It's not about the color of the uniforms or going to the stadiums. It's about those guys doing what they do and putting their body on the line so regularly. And it's not just a statement. It's real. We should always, in my opinion, understand that we should celebrate those guys because they are the NFL. They are this game that we love and the game we get to coach. Who would I be coaching, I have a lot of thoughts about that, but I really do appreciate it. And to see some of our guys here today, it means the world. It means the world. I want to remind us, I guess, one time about the work. Yeah, tons of work, dedication, all that hard stuff that we do with coaches and players to get to what we can get to. But it's really always been about the fun. And Wags, you've always been the guy that always reminds us that if you ain't doing it right, you're not having any fun at all. And I appreciate you keeping me connected to that. it's pretty inherent to me too. You know, we're birds of a feather in that regard. But I also, Bobby, is I appreciate you and T-Lock and Gino that have kept me connected to our former players. That's a really important part of this relationship of being a coach, and particularly in this program where we've been there for so long and so many souls have come through. Having you guys with me all the way through this time, and I always feel like I'm a little bit connected to those guys, and I don't ever want to lose that connection because I'm so indebted to all of the time we spent and the things that we did. I'm so proud of really seeing the young men grow up and take off in their lives and doing their things and owning businesses and families and kids and the whole thing. It's a great joy for a coach, but I appreciate you keeping me connected to that. I got to thank Jody and unfortunately Paul not, but the family was really classy at all times, and they supported what we were doing. I felt the support faithfully throughout, and grateful for that. It's a nice relationship here with the ownership, and it's as good as it can get from my perspective. Maybe harder on personnel guys sometimes, Johnny, but always so good. And to Johnny Snyder, you know, way back in the day when I first got the job here, they wanted to know if I wanted to be the general manager. And I said no, but I'd like to hire him. And Paul said okay, and we got John on board. And from the first moment that we really now we're going to do this, we stepped off to the side, and I gave John a big hug. I said, we're getting married, dude, and I'm going to help you be the greatest general manager in the history of the league, if I could. And you took 14 years to get to it, and I'm so proud. I'm so excited for you to have this opportunity. It's going to be cool, and it's always been a great marriage, and it's just unforgettable, and I'm just so grateful for that. And going forward, I'll be your biggest fan now, dude. I'll be there. I'll be right there for you. I've been blessed with like the rarest of best friends and mentor, loving partner, the angel in my life. This is worth crying for. Glenn, nobody would ever understand how significant she's been through all of the stuff that we've been through, and how important she is. As she's just been the angel in my life, and I owe you everything. My boys, Brendan and Nate, you guys would have no idea how valuable they've been to me, because they were the ones that would give me all the crap about what I was doing wrong and what I was screwing up. They were harsh, and their critiques were rash, and the whole thing, it was perfect because I needed that loyalty, and they were the epitome of it for me, and I'm forever grateful. They know, but I don't mind saying it to you, because it's hard to be that deeply loyal. It's hard to tell people what they don't want to hear and what they need to hear, and it's rare to have people around you that are willing to do that, particularly when you get in this kind of position, and it's so necessary to do well and do right. So fellas, I love the hell out of that. Jamie and the crew, my daughter and all our husbands and wives, and our 7+ kids. We got one on the way coming in April, making Glenn and I the proudest grandma and grandpa you can be. Really grateful to those kiddies that put up with grandpa's crazy stuff, because you can imagine I'm a pretty whacked out grandpa. And I just want to say this, that one of the things I'm most proud of in getting here is way back in the day when I called Tater and said, you know, hey, we got a chance to go to Seattle, man, and how about we take a shot and get up there, and maybe 2-3 years they'll give us a chance, and then they'll kick us out of here, and we'll see what happens, you know. But I'd like to take the culture that we had at SC and see what happens. And he said, hey, of course, Tater is always on board. Heck yeah, let's go. And 14 years later, man, we're both still shocked by that, but we're grateful for it as well. But what I am most proud of is that we took a culture that we developed there in those college days and came here to see if you cared for people deeply and you loved them for who they were and tried to find the extraordinary uniqueness that made them, and celebrate that, and not try to make them something that they're not, and not try to expect them to be something other than that, but try to see if we can capture that extraordinary uniqueness that they had, and celebrate that with them let's see what happens. Well, at SC, we killed it. And we came up here, and overall, we've been successful for a long time. I didn't think any way that this would happen like this. I didn't have that vision. But I'm grateful for it, because what we have here, we have an extraordinary culture. And I'm really proud of that. The guys that are here know. Guys that come here and leave know. Guys that haven't been here before and they show up here, they're shocked. And really, that happens because you guys continue to celebrate it and keep it going, and I'm able to keep calling on you guys to illustrate what it's all about. And this is a very special place because of all of that, and I'm grateful for that. The one last part of that I wanted to say is that what it's always been behind the culture is trying to help people find their best, and one person at a time, and it works. It's real, and you can feel it, and I'm really grateful for that. So we learned something here. It was a total experiment. It was a dictator. We had no idea, but you guys are examples of how that worked out. So I love you and appreciate that. So that's it for now, and I'm freaking jacked. I'm fired up. I'm not tired. I'm not worn down. You guys tried your best. You didn't wear me out. It's the end of the season. I'm supposed to be, go lay on a cot somewhere. I ain't feeling like that. And, there's what's coming. I don't know. I got no idea. And I really don't care right now. But I do. I'm excited about it because there's a lot to learn. There's a lot to study. There's some great discoveries that are going to come our way. And as my all-time mentor Bud Grant said, not in so many words, there's rivers to wade, there's waves to catch, and there's mountains to hike. And it wasn't exactly how Bud said it, but I get it. And that's some cool stuff that we're going to do here. And I look forward to all that. So with that, go. What do you got?
The statement indicated that you're still going to be around the organization. You still got some work to do here. What does that entail?
We're going to figure that out. We don't really know right now. But I'm grateful for the intention that that the organization has, to try to find something that makes sense. So we'll see. I don't know.
What went into the decision to step back, or I guess agree to step back and not be the coach anymore? Why did you agree to do that?
Well, I competed pretty hard to be the coach. Just so you know, because I just wanted to make sure that I stood up for all of our coaches and the players and the things that we had accomplished, and not so that we could be the coach still, but so that we could continue to have a chance to be successful and keep the organization going. That's what I was fighting for. So I in that regard, that was what I was representing in our discussions, and we got to a good part, a good clean spot where it made sense, and I went along with their intentions.
Do you feel like the team could take the next step forward and continue?
There's no doubt. There's no doubt in my mind. Yeah, and we all know that.
You sounded pretty confident Sunday and Monday that you would continue in your coaching role. Can you walk us through what the last couple of days have been like?
Just that we had our year-ending meetings with ownership and planning sessions with Johnny, and just talking through stuff, getting ready, and it takes us to the point where you get to what's next, and this isn't about me being the head coach. It's about this organization being successful and being on course for the long haul of it as well. And I realize that. I'm about as old as you can get in this business, and there's coming a time they got to make some decisions. And so, moving towards the future, if there's some way that I can add something to them down the road, we'll see what happens. But this is a good move for them, and Johnny's going to take this thing, take the bull by the horns, and roll. And I'm so thankful that I get to see him take that next step and watch what he does with it. He's going to kick butt.
All right, there he is, Pete Carroll, stepping aside after 14 years as the head coach of the Seattle Seahawks. And at the end there, that's the part that we wanted to grab, and that's the part that we wanted to know. What went into this decision? Pete Carroll saying he fought hard to still be the head coach of the Seahawks, but it was a decision sounds like ownership wanted to make the move away from Pete Carroll. A lot to unpack from that, as Pete Carroll no longer the head coach of the Seattle Seahawks after 14 seasons in the Northwest. This is Danny Dusty on The Fan.
Hello, sports fans, and welcome to
undefined as an advisor to the organization will continue. It seems like it is amicable. It is on good terms between Pete Carroll, of course, John Schneider, where he said, I will be your biggest fan. And you love hearing that if you're a Seahawks fan. But it sounds like the relationship is still good between ownership, Jody Allen, Burt Kolb, Vulcan, in the Seahawks organization, and Pete Carroll. One thing that was pretty glaring, though, is where he said, I fought to continue to be the head coach. And he believes that they can win in short order with whomever is the next head coach. And one thing that with Pete Carroll, he's not going to be a guy who meddles or tries to subvert the next head coach of the organization. He wants them to succeed there. But I do find it very interesting that ownership was pushing for him to step aside this season. That is a little alarming. You have the greatest coach in organizational history. He is 72. You heard it in his voice how much the game means to him, how much the Seahawks mean to him, how much his team means to him, and the culture that he built there. And I thought that was one thing that really stuck out to me is Pete Carroll sitting there and saying culture. Culture is what wins. Culture is what wins. You can build a staff of very bright football minds. But what is the difference between organizations that win and lose is culture. You call him Dweeberflus in Chicago.
It's because his culture sucks.
Dweeberflus knows football. Frank Reich knows football. Arthur Smith knows football. Those guys are all fired this year. Getting guys to buy in is the hardest part. Getting everybody to pull in the same direction, that's the hardest part. Because every single coach in the National Football League, every single coach at the Division I level in college football, they know more football than you ever will. They've forgotten more football than you will ever know. They are all bright, X's and O's wise. Culture's what wins. Culture's what gets guys to do things that normally they'd be unwilling to do. But if you have a good culture and you can get guys to buy in, and it comes in a variety of ways, whether it is demanding nature or in Pete Carroll's case, he is very demanding, and don't get that twisted with Pete Carroll being a player's coach. But Pete Carroll's a player's coach, and he's relatable to his players, and his players relate to him. And he goes the extra mile to build and develop those relationships with the players. That's what wins. That's what wins. And he wants to maintain that culture. And I think that's going to be the interesting part about it, as you see who the next head coach is going to be. And maybe that was the shortcomings of Dan Quinn when he was in Atlanta, which, by the way, they were pretty damn good in Atlanta when they went to a Super Bowl and blew a 28-3 lead, right? Pretty good.
Hey, look, Dan Quinn is a good coach.
But can Pete Carroll help him maintain the culture of Seattle to get the X's and O's that he has, to get the buy-in that he can get to kind of push it over the top, if that is going to be the guy who they end up hiring or whomever it is.
And he'd for sure get the stamp of approval from Pete, which I think is big. But I think when you listen to that press conference, you see why he was successful.
Yeah.
You could hear it in his voice. You could hear it while he's fighting through tears the entire time. He didn't want to go. Now, while it might be amicable, it felt like if he could stay another year, he would.
Yep.
And so to me, that feels like maybe it wasn't necessarily his decision, but he saw the writing on the wall and he saw that the decision was going to be made. And so instead of going the Wink Martindale, where he cusses out Brian Daboll and just MFs everyone on his way out, Pete did the stand-up thing, and the thing that I feel like he's really done his entire career, which is be a class act and go out the right way and thank the people that you're supposed to thank and say the right things. And then when you do leave, everyone will remember you fondly. It's like when you get broken up with.
Mm-hmm.
If you go out and absolutely trash that person to their face in the breakup or to other people, to your mutual friends, that might feel good in the moment. And people are going to be like, yeah, man, you really got out. You dodged a bullet there. But all deep down in their hearts and in their brains, they go, wow, that guy's kind of a jerk. I kind of see why they got dumped.
Yep.
When Pete Carroll goes out and says the right things and treats this organization the right way and thanks the people that he's supposed to, he will be remembered in a much higher light.
You know, the interesting part, and this is what I really appreciate about Pete Carroll, was we often hear coaches that'll fight back tears during these sorts of press conferences and stuff, but it was the moments in which Pete Carroll was fighting back his tears, right? He wasn't just a blubbering mess up there. He was fighting back tears when he was talking about relationships. His relationship with his wife, his kids, his players, the good times that they had, talking about John Schneider. Those are the times that he's getting choked up. That is why people get into coaching, right? A lot of people just like, they get into coaching because it's like, oh, it's football. It's what I know, right? The successful people in coaching get in it for the people too. You know, it's a really weird thing. You know, no matter what level you coach at, whether, you know, there's probably a lot of youth coaches or high school coaches or small college coaches that are listening right now that sit there and you're kind of going, yeah, that's why you do it, because you go out to practice. And especially when you get to the higher levels, like when you get into college or when you get into professional football has been their vehicle for life. And the meaning of the game means a heck of a lot more. And you're teaching at a far higher level, but you can make those connections at a higher level as well. And sometimes the best parts of any player's day, or hell, any coach's day, is when they go out on that practice field, because that game that has meant so much to them, that has taught them so much, that's your release, right? And if you can make those connections and you can meet with somebody on a human level when you're playing the game, that is where coaching pays off. And you can feel that with Pete Carroll, right? When you can feel that with Pete Carroll, that wins, losses are what the game is about, right? When that's what happens when he coaches on Sundays. But coaching for him is far more than that. It is what happens Monday through Saturday that leads up to what happens on Sunday.
You can tell
that dude is successful because of it.
There are a lot of, especially old school and his age of coaches, that the old saying, I treated everyone the same, treated them like dirt. That's not what Pete Carroll was. And when you go back, and I encourage people, and they will now that he is no longer the head coach, they're going to go back and look at old YouTube clips or read old news articles. He tried to be that coach when he was in New York and when he was in New England. That's the kind of coach he tried to be, because that's what everyone else was. Mm-hmm. And when he went to USC, he realized he couldn't be successful unless he came in. He's got this pyramid of success, and it's not like Ron Swanson's. It's a legit thing.
Or John Wooden's.
It's similar to John Wooden's. Look, it's all an offshoot of John Wooden. It is what it is. But when you look at the pyramid of success that he has created and how he lives his life and how every single day in his organization, when he's your football coach, there's a saying and there's a meaning, and he lives it as well. I think that shows, one, why he's successful, but it also shows the way that football is moving towards and the way that coaches have to act nowadays. And he seems to be on the forefront of it, where he is a true players coach. He genuinely cares about his players. It isn't someone from their ivory tower saying, hey, this is what this football team needs to be, and if you can't get in line, like I'm saying, your ass is cut. And I don't care about your family. He cares about the people around him. It's why he's a good dude. It's why people want to play for him.
Several players were there, too, including Geno Smith, Bobby Wagner, in attendance for Pete Carroll's press conference. One thing that I want to make sure we discuss here, I talked about how every coach knows X's and O's, and it's the culture that you can build and create that kind of takes it to the next level. Pete Carroll does not nearly get enough credit for the innovator he is on the defensive side of the football, especially in the secondary. And how good of a coach he was in the back end of his defenses. Like, it's not a mistake how the Legion of Boom was built and created, and it was not, I mean, he has done it in several iterations and variations, but the long pterodactyls that he put out on the edges, the zone schemes and the downhill play of his strong safeties, I mean, he found guys that were to a system that square peg in a lot of round holes around the league. And he carved out some square holes in his secondary and he filled them. And that's why those defenses were so damn good.
And people forget about this too. And I'm just young enough to remember the USC teams largely because my grandpa, great grandpa Wilbur, big USC Trojan fan. So I watched a lot of the Reggie Bush, Matt Leinart teams growing up. They don't get enough credit for how good those defenses were.
Those defenses were insane.
Because when people think about them, they think Matt Leinart, they think Reggie Bush, they think Lendell White.
Absolutely.
They do not give those defenses enough credit. There was a point in time where he had a linebacking core that was Ray Malaluga, Clay Matthews Jr., and Brian Cushing.
Pretty damn good.
That would be an incredible group in the NFL, let alone in college.
In the Pac-10.
Just dominant.
Yeah.
Dominant.
All right, we got a couple offshoots of the worst day on the web. We will take a break from Seahawks. We will revisit it as the show goes on because Pete Carroll out after 14 seasons as the Seahawks head coach, including what does it look like for the Seahawks moving forward from a roster construction issue as you head into this offseason. 23rd in the NFL in salary cap space. You have the 16th overall pick. You do not own a second-round pick, but you got 2/3 that you can work with. We will get to that as the show moves on, but our worst day on the web is next. First is Will with SportsCenter.
This
Superman over the judge's bench and attacking the judge.
Yeah.
You saw that guy?
Smart move there, dumbass.
So he was sentenced to 19 to 48 months in prison for the baseball bat attack that was there when he was being denied probation for that attack. He saw 19 to 48 months. And so he snapped when he was not given probation for that attack, and that's why he jumped over the judge's little desk there and attacked her. He is now being charged with attempted murder of an older person, battery, intimidating a public officer with a threat of force, extortion, and disregarding the safety of a person resulting in substantial bodily harm. My dude is 19 to 48 months is a drop in the hat compared to what he is going to be getting as a result of these charges. The look on his face when he was getting that sentence handed down to him, he was like, oh, you think? And you know what? That's just like the ultimate, like, hey, judge, definitely right in that one to not grant that guy probation. He's like, I'm a changed man. He's like, no, you're not. Oh, jump over the bench and attack the judge. Not a good look on that guy's part. And now he's going to be going to the slammer for a real long time. Apparently he choked the judge and was like pulling on her hair. You got to turn your mic on to talk on the radio, Will.
No, I don't. Don't tell me what I do and have to do. I was over here talking about something else.
All right. Oh, yeah.
I'll tell you what, though. That judge is badass.
That judge is badass.
Because you know what she did? She said, he will see me again. He will come back. I am not going anywhere. I am not scared of that man. You're going to see me again, sir. And I love the double down.
Hells yeah. You can't be intimidated by that clown. And he came back with like the orange mittens on. Everything was all chained up. He was wearing like the Hannibal Lecter mask.
Dude,
like they had him.
They should have wheeled him in Hannibal Lecter style.
I think this was worse.
Making him walk in with a muzzle, like a dog muzzle.
Yeah, yeah. And with the orange little mittens on.
The orange.
It's like, what are you gonna do now, guy? But he had like 6 guards around him. It's like, all you needed to do is instead of the 6 guards around him, just place one in front of the bench. that would have stopped it.
Just have your biggest guard, put him right in front, and then he can't get there.
Like Bull from Night Court.
I want to know what his thought process. No, Night Court's back. I understand. Melissa Roach is in it.
Yeah, you don't know Bull though from the original Night Court. I think he died. I think
probably all the movies you quote are from like 30, 40 years ago.
Easy, bud. Easy, bud. Easy, bud. What did you say you wanted to know?
I want to know like what went through his mind in the initial of like, she is not allowing me probation. You know what? I will show her how I get probation and how I get out of this. I will beat her up.
Oof. Yeah.
And then clearly she will have to give me probation.
Yeah, that's not how it goes, bud. That's not how it goes there, pal. So he's looking at 19 to 48 months in the old slammer there. Out of other news on the worst day on the web, which we will continue coming up next, somebody finally said it. Said what we're all thinking, and I bet there's quite a few teams from the early 2000s, Portland Trail Blazers, Sacramento Kings, that feel the exact same way. Danny and Dusty on the Fan.
Bo Nix and the Ducks go out the right way.
in the Raptors versus Lakers game, there was quite the free throw discrepancy in favor of the Lakers in their 132-131 win over Toronto. In the fourth quarter, it was 23-2 free throw discrepancy. Sacramento Kings fans going, been there. Like Blazer fans, been there.
Well, the Lakers don't foul.
No, they don't. But in the midst of that 44-42 fourth quarter between the two teams, Darko, Rajakovic, he is the coach of the Raptors. Got thick accent. Coach Darko. He went off on quite the rant in the post game for the Raptors, and I don't blame him one bit.
Thank you, Doug. That's outrageous. What happened tonight, this is completely BS. This is shame. Shame for the referees, shame for the league to allow this. 23 free throws for them, and we get 2 free throws in the fourth quarter. How to play the game. I understand respect for all stars and all that, but we have star players on our team as well. If that's the case, just let us know so we don't show up for the game. Just give them a win. But that was not fair tonight. And this is not happening first time for us. Scotty Barnes is going to be all-star. He's going to be the face of this league. And what's happening over here during whole season, I've been holding it back. It's a complete crap.
Yeah, I don't blame him. I mean, entering the fourth quarter, they were up 1 entering the fourth quarter, and they end up losing 132-131 because of a 23-2 free throw discrepancy. Now, people that are Lakers fans and always defend LA media, like Colin did earlier, he said, that's bogus because 10 of those free throws came in the final 30 seconds when Toronto was trying to foul. Yeah, well, 13-2 before that is pretty alarming, anyways. And when you look at some of the fouls that were called, Austin Reeves was called, a foul was called on Austin Reeves as he was going through the lane. Nobody touched him. And he got 2 free throws because he missed the damn shot. Like, you cannot tell me that there were plays in there where it should have been called the other way and it will go to the other end and there's a phantom call. Like, it was obvious when you look at it. Now, were 10 free throws awarded at the end of those final 30 seconds? Yeah. But also at the same time, it got to that point where it was 13-2 heading into those final 30 seconds. And that is also a discrepancy that you do not want as a league. And you cannot have is when you're looking at a team that's scratching, clawing, and fighting, and the Lakers are going to get the benefit of the doubt.
Right. And like, just to play devil's advocate, just for a little bit.
Yeah.
The Lakers are going to get more fouls based on the style of play that they play.
100%.
Right? LeBron is going to attack the basket. Anthony Davis is going to attack the basket.
Yes.
But you are correct. It cannot be such a 90-10% when it comes to how many fouls are called and what fouls are called on each team. There's a problem with the league when it comes to how many calls the star players get. Star football players get calls all the time. Star pitchers in baseball get calls all the time. But when those calls come, it's once every 2 to 3 games. Or if a pitcher's out, he's going to get 2 or 3 really close calls when it comes to painting the inside and outside parts of the corners, right? And he's going to get them for that strike 3. Or it's a big third down and DK Metcalf, he's going to get that defensive pass interference because the guy is dragging all over him. It feels like, to a degree, with the Lakers, if they drive into the lane and they do the old school James Harden, they're going to get a call every time.
Yeah. I mean, and I'll push back on like that style of play thing is true, but Coach Darko there's talking Scotty Barnes, downhill player, and he is not hunting for fouls and he's not hunting for calls. When you look at the fact that, yeah, LA, they're not going to play as much as the run and gun style. Well, let's take a look at the box score here. And you can look at it and you can say 44% of the Lakers' attempts from the field last night were 3-point attempts. Guess how many it was for the Raptors?
I bet less.
37%.
40 is higher than I would have expected.
Yeah. Of their 81 shot attempts, 36 of them were 3-point attempts. Of 94 attempts from the field for the Raptors, 35 were three-pointers. They shot in volume, fewer three-pointers, and had more shot attempts in the game, and yet got to the free throw line a total of 13 times. Whereas the Lakers got to the free throw line 36 times in the game.
I wonder how many of those fouls and free throw shots are coming from LeBron and coming from Anthony Davis.
14 for Anthony Davis, 6 for LeBron. So 20 of their 36 were from those two guys.
So you could almost if you take those two guys away,
Anthony Davis shot
pretty
more.
Darn even.
Anthony Davis shot more free throws than the entire Raptors team.
That's a problem. That is a problem that has to be fixed. It just does. Well, it's why everyone hates James Harden. That's what his career was built off of.
What's funny is that this complaint about the officiating, especially late in games, it is LeBron James was just complaining about it on Monday night. Even LeBron James was complaining about it during the Celtics-Pacers game. When Jaylen Brown got hit in the head, they reviewed the attempt and then overturned the call when he clearly got hit in the head. And then LeBron even tweeted about it, saying this is a problem in the league. And then the very next night, LeBron is the beneficiary of a game where it was called like that, where it was like completely one-sided. Like it's frustrating. And look, this is a problem that we see quite often in the NBA at about this time of the year, right? You have guys that are hunting for calls. You get teams that are trying to find their footing and stand their ground in playoff races. And when you're not getting calls against teams that traditionally do get those calls, it hits a boiling point, and it's usually about this time in January. And then there'll be a memo that goes out. The waters will level and everything will work out. But that's an all-time rant. And you know what? Some people are knocking Coach Darko for the accent, being like, it's hard to understand. I think that ramps it up a little bit. I'm not hating. I'm picking up what Coach Darko's putting down. I understood every damn word he said.
I didn't feel like it was hard to figure out what he was saying at all.
And I like the fact that it has a little flair to it when he's getting upset.
I feel like anger translates in all languages.
Yeah.
And it's not hard to figure out where his anger was going to come from. Now, he's going to have to eat a nice fine.
Oh, yeah. Oh, he's going to get that fine. I bet his players give him a little cash on the side for that one.
Or, maybe it comes from the front office of, hey, thank you for going out and saying those things. But I bet you there are multiple coaches that shot him a text that said thank you.
Hell yeah.
Because that's what you need. You need these situations. You need a coach or a player to go over the top and complain about something that's happening like this so that the change will finally happen.
Yeah.
Because if they don't say anything, the change will never happen. The NBA has a problem, at least an image problem when it comes to referees.
I think, it is the Tim Donaghy thing is going to be impossible for them to shake. And basketball is a game where you have so many calls that are judgment calls.
Right.
And they can dictate a game. So since the Donaghy scandal, it is, he must be in on the take. Oh, he must have juice on this game. Because the game is up to judgment in so many calls that you have on every single possession, right? We always say in football, like there's holding on every play. The egregious ones get called. Basketball, there's multiple fouls every time down the floor.
Mm-hmm. Carries every time down the floor. Travels.
Moving screens. It's all game long. And so that is the biggest issue that the NBA has with their officiating. And it is what you have in the complaining. Players and coaches know that. They understand that. It is part of the game. But you lobby to get in the forefront of the minds of the officials that your team has been slighted. And when you have that in the forefront, the officials are human. And when you have judgment calls and you are a human being, that will always be in your mind.
Right. But who would you, and I also think there's another aspect of it too, when it comes to the star players getting the calls that they want. It's a lot easier to get yelled at by Quickly and by OG Anunoby and Pascal Siakam than it is for LeBron James and Anthony Davis to scream at you.
Absolutely. The great text here too. Chris Paul, Scott Foster feud doesn't help either.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. When you have an official who confronts a player multiple times, including before the playoffs, saying, you've never won a playoff game I've officiated, that's an issue. Scott Foster needs to be gone. They need to overhaul their officiating crews. Full stop.
Right.
Full stop.
Also, the growth of X/Twitter doesn't help.
Yeah.
A lot of tinfoil hat people now have a large voice.
NBA Twitter is quite substantial as well.
It's a place, man. It's a wild place to join.
Yeah. Oh, hell yeah.
It's my favorite place to look at from an aerial view. It's like, what's going on over here now? Oh, craziness? Awesome.
All right. By the way, one of the top defensive linemen in the transfer portal, former Oregon State defensive lineman Sione Lolohea, is now a Florida State Seminole. He and DJ Uiagalelei are joining forces again in Tallahassee. So another Beeve gone officially, going to Florida State.
Yeah, to the regular season champions, Florida State Seminoles, 2023.
You can't even say that with a straight face.
Sorry, I also like to take an aerial view of Danny Cannell's Twitter.
Oh my gosh, that is an adventure as well. My God. All right, 503-864-6326. That's the Vancouver Forward text line. We've had a lot of Seattle Seahawks talk today, and rightfully so. Pete Carroll, no longer at the helm of the Seahawks after 14 seasons, a Super Bowl victory, and another Super Bowl performance. Where do the Seahawks go from here? From a roster standpoint, this is the time to reset if you are Seattle. Next on The Fan. ill. He's got that flu, man. That's gnarly. That's brutal, dude.
Gotta stay away from the flu.
As our man Gardner Minshew would say.
Nah, it's brutal, dude.
Yeah.
I don't know that I've ever had the flu.
Wait, what?
I feel like I just always get colds.
Really?
I don't, because like to have the flu, you get like a cold and a fever, and there's usually some kind of stomach issue involved, right? Am I correct on that? Yeah, that's not really been something I've ever really had. I get colds for sure. Colds all the time.
What about like vomiting mud butt? Like you've had.
Usually vomiting, I can directly link one thing to why I'm vomiting.
Getting, what do you call it? Getting hurt?
Getting banged up?
Banged up. You get banged up on the weekend?
I'm not going to say that I get banged up
all right.
often, but usually when when I'm puking, that's where that comes from.
Interesting.
And I don't get like flu shots. I don't know.
You just jinxed yourself, my man. There's a lot of strains of the flu, though. I bet you've had it.
Maybe more of a cold version. I guess I've never had a diagnosed flu. It's like when you talk to a football player, like how many concussions have you had? Never had any diagnosed concussions.
Good for you, bud.
I've had concussions.
You're going to get the flu in 3, 2, and 1. Jeff Rust also out, though. No Jeff Rust. Because, I mean, there's one afternoon host on this station that may have a more valid point, but lawyers might be involved on your part, Will. So I'm not going to say it.
Jimmy and I we're starting a class action lawsuit.
But maybe Suk was onto something with you poisoning this program.
Well, first of all, just be careful how you word that. Libel will be out there. But if you know anything about my bank account, poison's not cheap. It's expensive. Cannot afford poison. Not that I would use it. And I can't wait to sue Suk into oblivion.
Good luck with that. You have to afford a lawyer, too. I mean, he'll just take it out of the
He's going to work pro bono.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Hey, Pete Carroll out after 14 seasons as the head coach of the Seattle Seahawks. We played a chunk of that press conference that was emotional. I thought it was great. I thought it was really good. Pete Carroll just kind of laid it all out there. And he said, he still wanted to coach. He fought to be the coach of the Seahawks. But ownership had a different vision and direction. And by the end of their meeting that they had, he was on board with it. He will stay on in an advisory role. We aired that. We had a long conversation in hour number 1 about Pete Carroll and where the Seahawks may go with that coaching vacancy. If you missed any of it, check it out on the Service Patriots podcast. Wherever you find your podcast, or at 1080 The Fan, or in the Odyssey app, Service Patriots is your home comfort solution for all your heating and air conditioning needs. Check out the latest service and special offers for our listeners at servicepatriots.com/thefan. Seahawks, we talked about this with the Chicago Bears, right? In their decision to hang on to Matt Eberflus in a year where you have the number 1 pick, you have another top 10 pick in the draft, and you have got what they hold 1 and 9 in the draft this year, the Chicago Bears do. You have a quarterback that you can move on from, and the easiest way to do that is if you make a move at the head coaching position. If you want to hold on to that quarterback when you're about to have to pay that quarterback, getting a new head coach is the perfect time to reset that and reset a roster. Yet the Bears are holding on to Matt Eberflus. It kind of feels like that's the opposite of what Seattle is doing here, where you have a roster where Geno Smith is under contract, I think, for 2 more seasons in Seattle at a very affordable rate, but a guy where where the ceiling is with Geno and this team. You have to be able to build a roster that is not just good, but phenomenal around him. You will have holes that you need to start filling and you need to think about, and they have to be in the front of your mind. The Seahawks currently only have $9.95 million in cap space heading into 2024. If you do rebuild this roster, it ain't going to be through free agency. So you're going to have to do it through the draft. Where are the big holes that this team has? Well, Leonard Williams, interior defensive lineman, he is going to be a free agent moving forward and into this offseason. So you will have a gap, and there's a cap hold for him that is in that $9.95 million. That kind of takes up some of that space would be to re-sign Leonard Williams, right? But you do have other holes on the interior of your defensive line. You have Bobby Wagner, who did lead the NFL in tackles this year, was great to bring back and in that system, but he is getting long in the tooth. The way that Seattle can clear up its $16.5 million of cap space in 2024 alone is by parting ways with Jamal Adams. But then that gives you a hole in the safety position. But you had one basically all season long anyways because of his injury and then healthy scratch status of being disgruntled.
Well, and Julian Love, Pro Bowler, filled in for that role in that safety spot. So that might not be as big of a hole as you would think.
That would be a post-June 1st cut or trade of Jamal Adams, and that'll level it out over 2 seasons of cap hits, but that'll clear up about $16.5 million for the Seahawks. But you do have to start thinking about what are they going to do at the quarterback position. You have the number 16 overall pick this year. You do not have a second rounder, but you have 2 third-round picks. You have your own at 78, and I believe you have the Saints by way of the Broncos pick at 81. So you have the 16th, 78th, and 81st overall selections in the draft, and then you have your 4th, 5th, and 6th round picks to go along with it. But when you look at it, the positions of need, quarterback, interior defensive line, linebacker, interior offensive line, which was a mess this year, to help out your tackles who as rookies were very good and exceeded expectations. You saw a little bit of a regression this year, and I think you can look at the interior as to why maybe the
lots of injuries too
outside. Yeah, well, those guys banged up at the beginning of the year. Not Will Ortner banged up, maybe
actually
banged up and injured at the beginning of the year. I think that's kind of where on both lines is where the Seahawks are probably going to start this retool in restructure of this team. If not at the quarterback position, which is a deep quarterback draft, man. And bringing in a new head coach like this all of a sudden turns into, all right, is 2024 that year where you give up a little bit of capital and you try to move forward and move up in the draft to get a new quarterback in? Is it worth moving that draft capital and moving up in the NFL draft? Like, these are all the questions that you have to answer. Boy, there is some breaking news from Chris Lowe of ESPN. This is legitimate breaking news on the heels of Pete Carroll stepping away from the Seattle Seahawks after 14 seasons. Chris Lowe of ESPN saying Nick Saban is retiring at 72 years old. He also is stepping away from the game. That according to Chris Lowe of ESPN. This is a huge shift in the world of college football. A massive shift in the world of college football. And it could have meaning here in the state of Oregon. Because you are going to be crazy if you don't think that Dan Lanning is not going to be a target for the University of Alabama to fill the shoes of Nick Saban. According to ESPN, Nick Saban is retiring from Alabama. We'll get to that and start unpacking that next. This is Danny and Dusty on The Fan.